Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial, we are going to make this retro Christmas tumbler. I get my inspiration from lots of different places. It can be something like walking through a store and seeing an item that sparks inspiration for a cup, but for this one, it was just simply the vinyl. For whatever reason, this vinyl made me think of like Christmas jukebox, music. Maybe it was the square pattern that made me think of like an old-fashioned diner floor or something. I have no clue, but I just immediately thought of doing some sort of musical Christmas tumbler. So we're going to start out by taking this vinyl. I trimmed off the bottom of it just so I don't have tons of excess hanging over, and I'm going to line it up, leaving a little bit of that stainless exposed around the top rim of the tumbler. Trim off a little back of the vinyl so that we can press that down once we have it in place and just work this all the way around the tumbler. We are using a 24-ounce plump from the Steel Magnolia, and once I have this vinyl all the way around, since this has some pretty straight lines and we lined this vinyl up perfectly, all we have to do is use the squares as a guide and trim a straight line on the vinyl, remove the excess over top and underneath of the vinyl. I'm going to make sure that that seam is pressed down really well as the top and bottom rims of the tumbler. And I'm going to grab my vinyl trimmer from Cami Page Boutique. I have an additional spacer on this that is the half spacer on their website. That is the one that I prefer to use because it gives just enough of a trim to where the stainless shows on your tumbler, but not too much. So we just have a very small portion at the bottom of this tumbler that we're going to have to tape off and paint. I'm going to tape off the bottom of the tumbler just right alongside where we trimmed our vinyl. And then I grabbed Poppy COLORFLEX COLORFIX paint to go on the bottom of the tumbler. This was literally a perfect match to the red spots that are on our vinyl. This paint has a really good consistency to it, and if you use a makeup brush as I'm using, you get perfect streak-free coverage. But, however, around curves such as the bottom of the tumbler, sometimes it's a little hard to get streak-free there with any paints. So what I like to do is take my makeup brush and just dab it rather than doing brush strokes. And instead of giving those brush strokes, it's going to give a texture to that paint, which is going to allow you to go in with that second coat, and it will give you full coverage around the edges of your rim. I just used my heat gun on a low heat setting to dry this up and then removed the tape around the bottom of the rim, and then we can go in with a very thin coat of epoxy. We're going to use the epoxy method to apply our glitter, so we're only using about 1 milliliter of epoxy for this entire tumbler. Now originally I wanted to do sort of like an ombre where this pattern faded out towards the top, almost like blurred it out towards the top, and then put the decal on here. So I tried to pick a glitter that I felt would blur the pattern out just a little bit, But the glitter, once I got it on here, actually looked really awesome on top of this pattern, and it didn't necessarily blur it. It just gave it a lot of sparkle, and you could see the pattern very clearly through it. So I decided to just do the entire tumbler. And this glitter that we are using is pure white from COLORFLEX. I did use the ARTISTRY 1:1 ratio facet epoxy, so after about 45 minutes, this was set up enough to go in with a very thin coat of epoxy once again to add in our waterfall effect of glitter from the top of the tumbler. We're definitely using more than just a milliliter of epoxy since we are going over glitter. But as you can see, I'm adding on very little at a time and spreading this around really well just to get a very thin coat so that we can run over quickly with our torch and then add on the waterfall of glitter from the top rim. You don't want this to be very thick. That way your glitter that you add on top of this is not going to pool in areas. So just do a very thin coat, run over with your torch to make sure that those micro bubbles are out of the way, and then you can add on that second glitter. The glitter that we are using is 1920 from PDB Creative Studio. This glitter looks like a disco ball in a bottle, so I thought it was just a perfect glitter to match our pattern vinyl. I'm going to go heavy around that top rim and then hold my tumbler at an angle and allow that glitter to fall down towards the center of the tumbler. Once I had all of my glitter on there, I grabbed a glove and then went around the top portion and just patted down any of those chunky bits of glitter so that we only have to go over this with one coat of epoxy before we add on our decal. We're going to be using a new decal from Gracefully Created that I am super stoked about. It is a white decal, however, there are clear borders to it, so we want to make sure that we're putting that on a glossy surface. So if there is any sanding necessary for the center of your tumbler after that first coat of epoxy, just make sure that you do put another coat of epoxy on there. It can be a very thin one, just enough to get some shine back to the tumbler before you add on your decal. Now this decal is a bleach spot that can replace doing a spot using Dawn Power Wash or having to spray paint a spot on your tumbler for any of those water slides or clear cast decals that you might have. Now once you put this on, you do want to put a coat of epoxy in between your decal and either your water slide or your clear cast decal that you put on top so that it has a glossy surface to apply to. Again, it can be a very thin coat of epoxy. You just want enough to shine it up so that you can apply your water slide or your clear cast decal on top of this spot so it will show up and not have any dullness in behind it. These decals will be available on Cyber Monday after Thanksgiving, and there will be multiple versions available. There will be the sort of opaque one that we are using here. I didn't want it to be like super white in your face, and I thought it was a good option to have one that wasn't super bold white and allowed some of the design to show through so it looks more natural on the cup. And then there will also be a white that will be nice, bright, and bold. Again, these will be released on Cyber Monday, which is November 28th, 2022. And of course, more details and times will be released closer to that date, so make sure that you are part of our Brittany Barnes Boutique Tumbler art group or part of Gracefully Created group as well, or both. Now, while I have been jabbering on about this awesome decal, I'm just super excited. I did apply a water slide on top of that decal. The water slide paper I used is really good quality, and I will have that linked down below for y'all. And I got the image off of Etsy. If you need some more help on application for water slides, check back on my prior videos. I have quite a few that are actually full tumbler wraps or using small pieces of water slides on my tumblers that I go into pretty extreme detail on application, how to seal them, and how to print on them. After my water slide had dried for a couple of hours, so I didn't damage by touching it and applying these little musical notes, I grabbed these files from Creative Fabrica. I really liked how it was a scattered pattern and these little heart shapes. So I just cut 3 of them on some black shimmer vinyl from TeckWrapcraft, and I'm going to place them around the tumbler in a spiral pattern. So to do the spiral pattern, I'm starting on the top and the bottom of my main decal on the front, and then I'll go around to the back side and put a couple directly in the center so I have a guide to go from the top into the center and then around to the bottom of the tumbler. After I have finished adding on all of my little notes, it is time to add on my final 2 coats of epoxy. I love how this tumbler turned out. It's exactly how I envisioned it originally in my head. I'm really glad that my original thought of the glitter just sort of muting out the top of this vinyl didn't work out, because the silver glitter at the top just really pulls this whole theme all together. I will have all materials that I have used in this tutorial linked down below, of course with the exception of the new white decals, and I will have both our Brittany Barnes Boutique Tumbler art group and the Gracefully Created group linked, so you can get more details on this product once it is available. That is all for today. Thank you all so much, and we will see you next time.